Schaefer Yaks.
Schaefer Yaks! Woo! Schaefer, yeah!
Like that.
Okay.
There's,
Okay.
I actually like what you said, because that's like, that gives me, like history into your experiences with creek boats and stuff.
Absolutely. How do I get this message to go away? Oh, there it is. Got it. Okay, cool. Yeah. So, I mean, one of those, like, when I first started paddling, I tried all these different types of creek boats. And my first creek boat was a Mamba. And immediately I was like, I do not like this boat. But I was like, well, I'm new. And everybody's like, I like it. It's amazing. No.
Yeah. That's what everyone says about that boat.
Yeah. And it works for some people. I know some people who, like, that is one of their favorite boats, and that's perfectly fine. But for me, it wasn't a good fit. And then after that, I went to a Zet, and everybody said it was going to be amazing. And I got in it, and I tried so hard to love it. And I was like, I was like, I do not like this boat. And then I had a 9R. Do what?
What was the Zet?
It was a Zet 5.
Zet 5, okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I've heard mixed reviews on that
And
one.
yeah, so it just wasn't a good fit for me. And then I tried a 9R, and I felt so small in it, or I guess it felt really big on me, I guess is a better way to put it. And then I was having a conversation with somebody about getting a Scorch, and somebody said you should try a medium Scorch. And I was very shocked to hear that. And I was like, really? Okay. And we had a discussion about it. And I was like, okay, well, I trust their opinion. So I got a medium Scorch. And let me tell you, the moment I sat in that boat, I was like, this is it. And that's
Really?
my creek boat now. And I love it so, so much. And so many people will ask me, how do you like it? And they assume that it's a small, just because of my size being a female. And I'll tell them, like, no, it's a medium. And they're like, what? And they always ask, like, why did you get a medium? And I have that conversation, and, I love it personally.
You have really good technique, though, so you probably don't struggle putting it where you need to put it.
Right. And, that is, that was kind of part of the conversation that I was having with that person. Is they were like, you're going to be on the lighter end of the weight range on that boat. So the boat's going to sit higher up in the water. So it's going to, like, spin and move a lot easier. And because you have the technique to put the boat where it needs to go, it's just going to, like, glide. And I mean, yeah, it is very true. I've been in it. Do what?
Do you have more control over it because of that?
I have paddled small. I paddled a friend's small right when I got back from Idaho, because my boat was still in transit back home. So I paddled hers like a handful of weeks ago. And yeah, I would say I definitely could feel like I sat more in the water, I guess. And like there was a little bit more of you have a little bit more effort into these certain, like, strokes to make it happen. So I personally, whenever I get into the medium, I just feel like it is just like butter, just like glides through the water. And I had never really heard other people talk about that before until, like, me and this person talked about it. And now I'm just like, this makes so much sense. So I don't know. Maybe I'm crazy, but it works for me.
I tried one. I tried a scorch at crap, what was it? Oh, Charlotte, actually. I did
Yeah.
it because Piranha was there. Piranhas have like a Piranha Day or whatever.
Yeah.
What was the first
Wow.
boat you started off in?
It was a Mamba.
It was the Mama. That was your very first whitewater boat.
That was my very first boat. And I paddled that thing for, I would say, I paddled only the Mamba for probably 4 to 6 months, I would say. And then I started stepping into half slices. And that's when I got into my Axiom. And I really didn't like the Mamba. So I pretty much just shifted completely to the Axiom. Every now and then I would do runs where I felt like I needed a creek boat. So I would get back in my Mamba, but I hated it. And I think I held on to that boat for about a year before I finally was just like, this is not the boat for me. It's time to move on. And yeah, and I mean, I'm glad I did because it wasn't for me.
When you made the transition from the creek boat, because this is a big thing that both Wade and Corin brought up, was, a lot of people like on Corinne's side of the aisle are like, creek boats are bad for beginners. They're too forgiving. They take care of you too much. And he actually suggested an 8-foot or a 7 to 8 foot long half slice. And that would be better for your progression if you were of the profile. Because he kind of broke it down. He said, it's hard to just say what's one good boat for beginners. You can't really break it down like that. Or what they were telling me. You kind of have to look at the person's profile. But you're athletic, tenacious, don't give up, can take hits. So you kind of fit that, profile that they're talking about. So did you see like a drastic increase in your progression when you got in the half slice?
I wouldn't say it was because it was a half slice that caused me to progress. I think it's because I liked the Axiom more than I liked the Mamba. Like the Mamba, I felt like I had no control over it. And now that I look back on it, it just didn't fit me right. I don't know. I felt like I never had any control over the Mamba. If I needed it to go a certain way, it took so much effort to get it there. So the Axiom, it's easier to maneuver a half slice than it is a creek boat. So it gave me more confidence because if I was out on the Ocoee in that Mamba, I was like really having to dig to get it where it needed to go. When I was in the Axiom, it was easier to get it over there. So I don't think it was because the half slice, I don't think the half slice helped me progress skill wise. I think it just gave me more confidence and it was a little bit easier to control. I think each style of boat teaches beginners a very specific type of skill set. So I think it's good for beginners to try a creek boat, a half slice, a play boat, or a full slice. And a long boat. I tell beginners, when you get your roll down, you should get in a longboat and you should spend a lot of time in a longboat because the fundamentals of paddling are you need to be able to have really good strokes, and longboat is not going to go where it needs to go unless you can do that. And it's going to teach you boat control you have never seen, like if you can control a 12-foot boat, you're going to get in a creek boat and you're going to be like, oh, this is nothing. So I think there's something really valuable to be learned with every style of boat. So I recommend beginners try all of them. I know the thing about this sport is, it's very subjective. Nobody's journey is the same. People have their opinions, and they have their opinions for a reason, and that's great. That's fine. This is my opinion. This is how my journey, went. And I feel like because I tried all different types of avenues with paddling, I learned very specific skills from each type of boat. And I think being a well-rounded paddler is going to give you a very strong foundation to grow and progress. So,
Yeah. So
mhm.
essentially, like, if you get in a boat and you don't like it right away, don't blame yourself. Sometimes it really is just that boat doesn't fit who you are. Nothing wrong
Yeah,
with moving on to the next boat.
that
Man, this
is
is
what I
like dating
tell.
advice.
Yeah, yes, exactly. It's one of those, sometimes you don't know what you want until you have something you don't want,
Yeah,
or vice versa. You don't know what you want until you have it and you're like, "Ooh, I don't like this."
that was the
So
piranha
yeah, it
motto
is
for
kind of
me.
like dating.
It was the
The
piranha
motto was
motto.
like that for you.
Super stable, super easy to row, but so slow. It was like unnerving. It was so slow.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
yeah.
I always said the Mamba to me felt like I was paddling a 2x4. It was just, oh, I did not like it at all. What was the boat you were talking about earlier where you said it felt really big on you? Was the Scorch?
Was it?
I don't know. There was some boat that you
It
said
felt,
it
yeah.
felt
Well,
very
the
big on
torch
you.
felt like kind of like a tank. It almost
Yeah,
felt
like a
plodding.
tank.
But all of my
Yes.
friends were like, "Dude, this boat's super fast. It gets in and out of." So I'm like, maybe it's me. I like. It just didn't.
Yeah.
That boat didn't
And
drive well
and
with
like,
me. Yeah.
yeah, and that's the thing. I feel like, especially when people are beginners, it is really hard to not internalize that when you get in a boat that
Yeah.
everybody's like, it's amazing, it's the best thing ever. And you're like, I hate this. Like, it's really
It's,
hard to not internalize that and be like, oh, like, I'm not a good paddler, or there must be something that I'm doing wrong because everybody loves this, but I
yeah.
don't. It's like, just because everybody else loves it does not mean that it is meant for you. And it is hard to kind of step out of your comfort zone and like change and go with a different style of boat. It's like, well, maybe I just need to work harder. Like, sometimes it's just not a good fit, and sometimes you need to try other things.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
What
mean,
advice would you give someone? I mean, who did maybe pick out their first boat and it's not, really working for them? Are there like questions you would maybe ask yourself, like, okay, what isn't working about this boat for me?
yeah, I think, yeah, there are some things that are simple fixes. Like, okay, first off, is it the right size and is it outfitted to you? That is something that could just be a huge game changer.
Yep.
And then also, it's great if you can see that person paddling and you can kind of watch them and watch what they're struggling with, because sometimes, I have a lot of beginners that are like, oh, I hate this boat, it just keeps spinning in circles and da da da. And I'm like, okay, like, understandable. And I watch them paddle, and then I'm like, oh, well, let's make this little tweak with your technique. And then we practice it a little bit, and then it starts happening less and less. So sometimes it's technique. And then sometimes you just kind of ask them, like, explain to me what you don't like about it. Have you tried other boats? Sometimes they just need to go try other things, and that will help solidify the decision in their mind that, okay, you know what, this boat isn't for me. So I mean, that's what it was for me. Like, I was bouncing between like all these different creek boats. And I think the code had just come out and everybody was like so excited about the code. And I got in one and I was like, this, like you said, this feels like a tank. I feel like I'm sitting in a bathtub. Like it's so big.
The knees are
And
really high and
yes,
you're
like the
disconnected
knees
from
are like
it.
up here.
Yep.
Yeah.
I thought the same thing. Literally.
Yeah. And so I was just like, my God, like maybe creek boats just aren't for me. I'm just not meant for this world, I guess. And so so I was feeling a bit discouraged because I was like, man, all of these boats that everybody loves, it's not a good fit for me. And then I got in my friend's Scorch and I was like, oh my God, like this is it. And then I decided I wanted to buy one. And then I ended up with the medium Scorch and I love it.
Yeah. That's what you'll be in Chill tomorrow, right? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. That's what I'll be in tomorrow. So.
That is good. I mean, Wade said it best. He was like, dude, Charlotte's no good. You got to try it out in something big, bushy.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
what's funny too is the first time I tried the code, I didn't like it. The knees, I felt disconnected and stuff. And then I tried one again, and actually, it was Charlotte. I did the comp channel in Hunter's boat because he wouldn't give me my antics back. I didn't mind it on the comp channel, but when I had tried it on Upper Hooch, I'm like, dude, this is just not good. Did not have a good time with it at all. But
yeah. And that is something that I just try to really ingrain in people's minds when they're beginners. I just try to tell them, take what other people say with a grain of salt, because this sport is so subjective. Like with everything, like people's like path of progression, like the rivers and how they do them, to progress, and the boats that people say they like, the clothing that people wear on certain rivers, like every single thing in this is subjective. And you have to be able to stand on your own 2 feet and say, this is what feels good to me. So yeah, I try to make sure that people know that they don't have to go with what everybody else says.
that's really good advice. I mean, dude, how many beginners probably do that? Hey, everyone has this boat, so it must be good.
Yeah.
That's probably a lot of it, man. Or they don't know at all and they show up at like, 3.5 with an open top Pelican and you're like, this isn't gonna work.
Let's have a conversation.
We talked about this.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's really great when you see these people that are beginners and they have this boat that they're just like, it is what it is. And they don't have like a ton of confidence because they aren't able to do things that they want to do. And then you kind of chat with them about different options. And then eventually they try a different boat and then they get in it. And it's just like, the boat feels like this new boat feels like an extension of themselves, and it gives them this confidence. And it's just so amazing seeing these beginners who are a little timid and unsure of their skill level get in these boats that work for them. And then all of a sudden, like they just light up, and it's just like, yes, that's what this is about.
Would you recommend, maybe not starting a beginner in a playboat, but would you recommend a beginner maybe picking up a playboat on the side if they have the means? So I've heard a lot of people say like, I'll tell people playboating will help your roll. Because you're gonna roll so much that you'll get better at it. But
Yeah.
I don't know that I would really. I've never given it much more thought other than that. But
Yeah. So my kind of rule of thumb comes to beginners is I am such a huge proponent for good form, good technique, things like that, because when you are first starting off, you need to focus on the fundamentals. And it may seem really boring and you may be like, my God, how many like forward stroke drills and bow draw drills, like how many of these do I have to do? This is not fun to me. And it's like, I get it. Like you're starting off at the same time as these other people and you're watching them just like take off progression wise. And you're just kind of like slowly inching your way up and you're like, oh, this is so frustrating. Like I could be doing this, but it's one of those when you dial in on the fundamentals, like your strokes and rotating your torso and looking where you want to go and like all of those things that goes into every single river that you're going to paddle. So once you have that and you've got it dialed in, you are going to shoot up the progression trajectory. Like you're gone after that. And it's one of those, if you don't have that foundation when you start, you can get to a certain point without it, kind of just muscling your way through and whatnot. But eventually you're going to get to a level of river where you can't just muscle your way through it. You have to have good form to hit some moves. So I think being in a playboat, those boats are very easy to turn. They're very easy to put them where you want them because they're a planing hole. So it's very easy to spin it around. So that is not going to teach you good strokes. It's not going to teach you boat control. It's not going to teach you to like rotate your torso. It will get you used to being upside down and getting your roll. But if you don't have good form with your roll, I mean, it's just going to like further instill that bad form, which could lead to injury, or when you get it out on like big water, that form doesn't work. So
yeah.
I think I personally recommend creek boats to beginners because it does take a lot to move these really big boats around. And you have to have good form to make these boats move the way you want them to keep them from spinning out, things like that. So I tell people to start in a creek boat because if you can control that, you can control anything else.
Now you can step down to the playboat and you have the foundation to not get hurt
Exactly.
like big dum-dums like someone I know.
Yeah, because when I started, I think it was probably like a year or more into paddling before I got into like a playboat full slice type situation. So I don't think you have to paddle one of those types of boats to have a good roll. I think it's just one of those, you have to be intentional on making sure that your form is good with your roll, and just practicing all the time. Like when you go to roll practice, don't go out there and hit like 5 or 6 rolls and be like, okay, cool. Like go out there, you're out there for a couple hours. Use that time, like really put yourself in some weird positions and flip upside down and figure out how to roll up with good form. Like that's how you get a good roll, honestly.
It is.
Yeah.
I did that for a while. I had to unlearn a lot of bad habits that I taught myself.
Yeah.
Honestly.
Yeah.
I mean, that'd probably be that would be my advice to a beginner. Like your boat is, yeah, it's important, but get with an actual instructor who's going to teach you the right shit right off the bat instead of, doing what I did.
Yeah. Cause I mean, what was it like for you having to unlearn those bad habits? Like what were some habits you had to break?
My elbows were trash.
Mhm.
I always wanted to lift my elbows. I have like stupid long arms and I'm like lanky and shit. So like I always wanted to try to elbow up. And in the beginning too, I thought your hands were supposed to be in. I didn't know the zombie arms thing yet. So I'm like trying to paddle in like this. Savannah had a field day with me. Our first lesson was hilarious.
She was like, where do we start?
Yeah, she was like, look, you're really bad. And I was like, oh shit.
And
Like we're just pulling
I
away from
bet that
Woody
is exactly how she
stairs.
said it.
Yeah. We're just pulling away from Woody stairs and she already knows. Yeah. But after 2 lessons with her, man, like there really is an importance. It's almost like people think, and I was one of these people, that whitewater kayaking, yeah, it's a sport, but it's different. It's not like other sports where I need to get a coach and actually learn like fundamentals and
Right.
technique, but it very much so is. Like, and I mean, how many people have you had to teach that to? Like, dude, let's work with
Yeah.
this first.
Yeah, because yeah, it's one of those. It's really difficult to unlearn a bad habit, and it's like, yeah. So I strongly recommend to people, when you first start out, get with somebody who is a certified instructor, because there are some people out there who, they go and they're paddling big water, but they don't necessarily have good technique and good form. And maybe the way that they teach is not like, it's not going to be received well by some people. I don't know. So sometimes people can inadvertently teach things that aren't correct and teach bad habits without meaning to. So I tell people, you need to find a certified instructor, because just because somebody's running class 4, class 5 does not mean
Right.
that they actually have good habits. Some of them do, but not everybody. And then I also tell people, if you can't afford a one-on-one with a certified coach, join like a paddling club near you, because a lot of these trip leaders, like TVCC, they have like a whitewater progression series every summer where they get you to the Akoe level by the end of the summer. And a good number of their trip leaders are certified instructors. So you can go out on the river with these people for free and learn from certified instructors. So, I mean, that's what I did my first summer. I was a club boater. That's how I got into it. And I spent the entire summer at TVCC roll practices. I went to all of the river trips all summer long. My mentor, Jim Fortune, he is with TVCC. He took me under his wing. And I mean, that club is the reason that I am where I am now with paddling. So I am a huge advocate for that club or other paddling clubs.
I want to try to get more people into kayaking, obviously, right? Some
Yeah.
people just say spread the sport like it's some slogan. I'm going to pour hours of my time and passion into trying to grow this. And the first series is how to pick your boat, what to look
Yeah.
for, what steps to take, and what advice from instructors as yourself and people who know what they're doing. And I mean, dude, already you have all this experience with all these different boats. So you're in a very unique situation. So it was really cool to hear your thoughts on this. I really appreciate this a lot, dude. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I'm really excited that you're doing this. And yeah, it was awesome. So yeah, I think there's something that can be learned from every style of boat. And, I tell beginners, just try everything and work on the fundamentals. And once you get that dialed in, I mean, you'll just take off. And yeah, exactly. Exactly. Schaefer yaks.